Hi everybody, my name is Stu Harrison and welcome to another piano review here at Merriam Pianos. We're in the Oakville showroom just outside of Toronto, Canada, and we're going to be talking about Kawai's GL20. This is the 5'2" baby grand that has really become an incredibly popular model here at the store, and I know throughout North America and other areas where the GL series sells. I mean, when the GL series came out in 2016, we were quite impressed with the entire line. We weren't really sure which model was going to find the biggest audience. We thought the GL10 would be a huge hit. It has in fact turned out to be a big hit. But the GL20 has kind of emerged as a bit of a dark horse in that it's so close in size to the GL10, but yet seems to bring something quite substantially unique to the marketplace for a slightly higher price point. So we're going to be covering exactly why we think this has become such a hit with the piano buying audience. We're going to be talking about the tapered soundboard, covering the action, the sound and the tone that this instrument generates, and at the end of the day, hopefully giving you some good and helpful tips at home to assist with your shopping. So thanks again for joining us for another review, and we're going to get started right away. So let's get right into what makes the GL20 such an interesting choice for its price range. And when we talk about price range, of course, we're in the under $20,000 category, which makes it a rather coveted price range for a lot of families because, of course, I think many of us when we start out piano shopping fear that we might have to go over the $20,000 range to get something that might be satisfying. And of course, we all know what the $10,000 range has to offer. There's some credible choices from China, Indonesia. Some of the larger brands do have offerings in the 5-foot range, but there's sort of a bit of a void in the marketplace in that high teens range where it's hit and miss, and oftentimes you find something that on paper should be a pretty good instrument, but once you get in front of it, something feels a little bit lacking, and ultimately you wind up upping the budget to $24, $25. Well, I think that's exactly why the GL20 has turned out to be a bit of a star for us, because it does exactly that. It actually delivers a musical instrument which has the potential to satisfy professional ears, really advanced students, but stay under that $20,000 mark, which is critical for a lot of families who are doing the shopping, want to make the right investment for their kids, but we all have budgets to worry about. So why do we think it delivers that value? Well, let's start with something that's common throughout the whole GL series to begin with. This piano has a tapered soundboard. Doesn't sound like it's a big deal for those of you who are just starting out with the piano shopping, but let me tell you, this is actually quite unique for the price range and for the size. Tapered soundboards is something that high-end instruments, if you're talking about lines like Bechstein or Fazioli, this is a common technique where the closer to the edge of the soundboard it gets, they actually thin it out. And so as the energy in the middle starts to get closer to the edge, where it's going to be more difficult to keep vibrating because, of course, it's clamped down next to the frame, they thin it out, and so the energy actually is able to creep that much further towards the edge, and so you just get more active soundboard. So tapered soundboard equals a more active soundboard area versus something that's a little more inside. So for the size of the instrument, you just get more vibrating space. That creates more tone, and as long as the rest of the piano is designed well, is generally going to give you a bigger dynamic range and possibly a bigger tonal range. Super unusual to find it in this price range. So like I said, this is something you find on the entire GL series, but it's worth mentioning, because we are talking about the GL20. So tapered soundboard, actually a big deal. Do some reading on it. Just don't Google Kawai or any other brand. Just tapered soundboard, and you'll sort of figure out exactly why that might be a benefit to you. Let's continue on to the action. Now, the GL series did something that I really liked when it came out. Essentially, continued many of the things that the RX line had, and one of those was the full Millennium 3 action from Kawai. Now, because it's so easy to actually open this up, we're going to do this right here so I can visually show you what some of those differences are and why it might actually create a really great playing experience for you at home. So we're just going to quickly take this off. And we're just going to pull that action out so we can see what we're dealing with under the hood, so to speak. So here we have the Kauai Millennium 3 action. Now this is the action that you're going to find on all of the GL series, and you're going to see a slightly upgraded version of this on the GX and the Shigeru, but fundamentally we're dealing with the same design. One of the things I really like about Kawai is that right through their entire price point you're getting really their top action design, even when you're spending $10,000, $15,000. I think that's great. You know, you have other companies that take that approach. You have other companies that sort of hold the best back unless you're ready to spend a ton of money. So Kawai's always sort of been a nice value-focused company. They seem to be continuing that with the GL series. So what do we have with the GL20? Well, first of all, it's easy to see we've got double felted hammers. Now that's something that you're going to find probably on somewhere around a third to a half the pianos in this price range. So it's not incredibly unique, but it is important. Now what does the double felting do? Well, it allows the hammer to sort of change the density of that felt as it hits the string. It kind of produces a wider range of harmonics depending on whether you're playing it really softly or really loudly, without the felt getting so hard that it actually starts to distort the string. Pianos are really fascinating when you can look at them through high-speed cameras, and one of the things that's the most fascinating of all of them is to see what happens to a hammer when it's hitting the string at high velocity. The hammer actually does compress, and so by putting that extra little layer in there, it's like having a leaf spring, you know, on a vehicle in addition to the shock. It's just when it really starts to impact, it's this extra little layer of cushioning that allows it to still stay somewhat elastic, even though it's really pushing up against that string, and stops it from distorting. Another thing you're going to notice is all of this black material. That's of course the carbon reinforced ABS action that Kawai's been working on for decades. Does it change the sound for the better? No. Does it change it for worse? No. In fact, most people would argue this is likely to not have any impact on the sound whatsoever. In fact, all of the material has no contact with any of the natural wood and wool parts whatsoever. So this is strictly mechanics. So why do they do this? Why do they put this on the GL20 or any of the other series? Well, really, if you're in a climate like ours, which is in Canada, or even in many parts of the United States, we have humidity that within a 24-hour period could go from 70% to 20%. I mean, it really can be that dramatic, even just within a single day. That does not do great things for anything made of wood, whether it's a door or a floorboard or a piece of furniture or action parts in a piano. That creates a lot of swelling, a lot of shrinking, and over time it just kind of creates a maintenance nightmare, something you constantly have to tend to. It's not going to 100% eliminate the need to regulate this action, but it dramatically reduces it. And the biggest immediate difference that I notice is pianos that have this action in this climate, or northeast US or even European climates, the piano plays the same on a wet day as it does on a dry day. It doesn't feel any heavier, it doesn't feel any lighter, it feels just as tight. So although the long-term benefit is lower maintenance, the immediate musical benefit to me is consistency. This piano just feels the same regardless of what's happening outside, which is nice because you can't always control, well, let's be honest, you can never control what's going on with the weather, but this at least allows you to control what's going on with your piano. So we've got this Millennium 3 action that the GL20 is equipped with the double felted hammers, and there's plenty of other little functions of the Millennium 3 action here. And in fact, we've done another video that just specifically focuses on all the tiny little engineering things they've done here. So we're not going to go too far deeper there, but look for the link on the Millennium 3 action, and you can kind of nerd out with me on that topic in a completely separate video. So let's get this back in, and we'll keep talking about the piano. So the next thing I'm going to make mention of, and this is where we're really going to start to maybe do some playing and listen to this instrument. We've got a great AKG C414 microphone up there just ready to capture what we're going to do, is you're going to notice this fairly large, or if you are an astute observer of piano design, a much fatter crossbar section. And you'll notice that it runs the full width of the piano. It is not part of this, it's this sort of stretcher bar or crossbar. And in many instruments, particularly in instruments at a lower price point or an entry-level price point, this largely is an aesthetic piece that simply covers up the frame and covers up the pin block. It doesn't really do much musically. This is possibly one of the biggest innovations that they've brought to this line, the GL line, because this stretcher bar is actually full frame material, which means that the inner rim of this piano isn't just going around the back of the instrument, the curved part. The inner rim material actually is connected right around. It's a full perimeter. And so what does this do? It turns the entire instrument into a far more efficient sympathetic resonator. So that means now, instead of only hearing the soundboard creating the tone, the entire piano is now able to resonate at a far more efficient level, and the whole cabinet is creating tone. And so what does this give us out of a 5'2" piano? To me, this gives us a dynamic range which is a lot closer to what I normally would expect out of, say, a 5'8", 5'9", or a 5'10" piano. It's absolutely incredible the kind of tone that you can get out of this instrument. Huge range of dynamics, and I think what's more surprising for this size and price range, huge range of tonal palette. You're really getting a ton of color out of this piano. Now, helping that is the duplex scaling. Again, something that's a little unusual in this size and price range, but you can find it on other instruments. But as a whole package, because this is really where it comes together, is it's a package deal. Every place you look in terms of the design, in terms of the manufacturing, in terms of the workmanship, quality control, material selection, there really is, it's difficult to find a weak spot in what they've brought to the table here. It's not just one feature that's working well, it's everything that's working together in concert to really make this a super efficient tone producer and a very satisfying instrument to play. The action speaks for itself, and that's something that you're going to find across the Kauai line. Just a nice, highly controllable action with a really great repetition speed, easy to regulate. It has a very distinctive feel. Anyone who's ever played will know that. But in combination with the scale design, the tapered soundboard, the stretcher bar, The hardwood frame, we're using mahogany with some maple in there. All of it together, it creates a huge, just an enormous value to anyone who's looking for a smaller instrument that's just got it all and doesn't want to put out the budget to start to get into like ultra premium materials. So from a design standpoint, it's about as best as you can get. From a material standpoint, you're sort of aiming right down the middle, but that middle you'd usually have to be paying mid-20s to 30 to get. So overall, my suggestion is if you're looking for a piano, I would say anything 5'8" and under, and you're a family with a student, or sorry, a family with a son or a daughter who's kind of graduating up from a small upright or even a digital and showing some promise, and you've got, you know, a smaller space, put this on your list. You know, I can't promise that you're going to love it, but I can promise that you're going to find that it's a great use of time to investigate it at the very least. Get it on your list. It should be available in most markets around the world, and certainly right here in Toronto. You can find it on both our showrooms in Oakville and Vaughan. So thank you again so much for watching. I hope that these thoughts have been helpful to you at home as piano researchers. Good luck with the search. We'll see you back for more videos later, and have a great day.